This is a video presentation of the guidelines for creating effective marketing materials with the EISA messaging and copy library. The guidelines have been written to support the use of the EISA messaging and copy library, which is available on the same page as the link to this video. You'll also find the written copy of these guidelines on that page. First, some background. Why have we created the messaging and the accompanying guidelines? In 2007, Congress passed the Energy Independence and Security Act, or EISA. The intention of this legislation is to move the United States towards greater energy security, partly by increasing the standards for product efficiency. EISA establishes increased minimum energy efficiency standards for general service lamps. EISA does not ban incandescent light bulbs, but its minimum efficiency standards are high enough that the incandescent lamps most commonly used by consumers today will not meet the new requirements. Many manufacturers of incandescent bulbs are redesigning their products to meet the new standard. But here we're focusing on the effective, significantly more efficient alternatives currently available, those being compact fluorescent light bulbs and LEDs. EISA also requires standard labeling on all light bulbs, providing key information to consumers regarding the bulb's energy use, brightness, color, expected lifetime, and other features. So why do we need new messaging for efficient bulbs? An eventual outcome of EISA is that consumers will no longer be able to find the incandescent light bulbs they're accustomed to buying. Soon they will need to choose from halogen, CFL, or LED alternatives, which provide the same quality of light but use less energy to do so. And because a 40-watt incandescent has a very different brightness than a 40-watt CFL, consumers will have to relearn the relationship between the brightness and watts and start thinking instead in lumens. In addition, some consumers have been dissatisfied with CFL and LED bulbs in the past because of appearance, color, or functionality, and they may not be aware of the improvement over earlier generations of these bulbs in the ranges of styles, applications, and colors now available. As a result, the new messaging needs to communicate how energy-efficient bulbs are mature technologies that can match the quality and range of uses we've become accustomed to with incandescents. New messaging will help consumers smoothly transition to these new bulbs. To meet this need for new messaging, in 2012, BPA contracted with a marketing firm for the development of consumer-facing marketing, messaging, and copy. The result of this is the EISA messaging and copy library for which these guidelines were developed. The new messaging will help consumers make the right choice for their bulbs and minimize dissatisfaction. The new messaging makes them aware of the upcoming changes in light bulb options and why it's a positive. It communicates how to select a bulb by using lumens of brightness rather than watts of energy consumed. It makes them aware of a new lighting facts label, which provides information on the bulb's features, and it helps consumers understand the general benefits of more energy-efficient lighting. As a side note, although halogens are more efficient than incandescents, we ultimately want to turn customers towards the most efficient bulbs, CFLs and LEDs, and not towards halogens. These guidelines are to be used as high-level recommendations for effectively applying this messaging to your lighting promotions. The guidelines provide examples of this content used in ways that are more and less effective, and they're a reference for quality control and regional consistency. These guidelines are not intended to be a set of prescriptive rules. They're not required messaging or terminology that utilities or stakeholders are expected to adopt verbatim, and they're not finished copy for utilities to drop into their materials. Blocks for constructing motivating and informative messages that you can adapt to your own marketing and communications needs. The first pillar, New Energy Standards, concerns how the new standards will require consumers to make purchase decisions based on lumens and not watts. The pillar called Reduce Energy Waste concerns the benefits of new standards in helping consumers reduce energy waste and their energy costs. Know Your Energy Efficient Choices contains copy for letting customers know there's an efficient bulb for almost every application. The pillar called Right Light for Each Situation talks about new labeling that will help consumers understand how to match a bulb to their needs. And finally, the pillar called Your Utility is Here for You contains messaging about how local utilities can help navigate new lighting choices. All 5 pillars in this messaging platform contain messaging that ultimately will help customer purchase the right efficient bulb. But the second pillar, focused on reducing energy waste, is using messaging to motivate or inspire the purchase rather than simply facilitating the right purchase. The use of reducing energy waste as a primary motivating message is supported by consumer research conducted in the Northwest, and the Bonneville Power Administration is supporting a regional effort of this messaging in marketing energy efficiency products and services. This effort was initiated in December 2010 when the Regional Marketing Coordinating Council, representing 14 Northwest utilities and energy efficiency organizations, determined that unified regional energy efficiency messaging and an associated marketing toolkit could benefit the region. Using a common messaging theme throughout the region would create an echo chamber and amplify its potential to substantially increase the uptake of energy efficiency. Reducing energy waste is the central messaging theme in the Council's Regional Marketing Toolkit. The research conducted for RMCC Toolkit provided these consumer insights. Residents of the Pacific Northwest hate waste. The word waste conveys that this usage can be eliminated without sacrificing comfort or quality of life. Cutting waste provides a sense of relief rather than sacrifice. Waste is persuasive for everyone, including those who have done a lot and those that think they have done everything that they can do. The waste theme ultimately brings together the motivation to act, that is, the high dislike of wasting anything, with the emotional and functional benefits of saving money and conserving resources. You can find examples of reducing waste used in energy efficiency messaging in the Style Guide for Regional Messaging at nia.org. Click on Resource Center on that homepage. As you consider how to apply messaging from the messaging platform, you first need to assess several impacting factors. We'll provide examples of several of these later in this presentation. The first thing to consider is, what is the dominant purpose and desired outcome of this marketing piece? If you're creating copy intended to motivate consumers at the time of purchase, as in in-store materials or in-store coupons, copy should be direct and limited to the primary information that will influence customers' immediate purchase decisions. For example, this would be messaging about how efficient lighting cuts energy waste and saves money, and or highlighting the incentives you're offering to reduce the purchase price of the bulbs at that moment. If instead your marketing piece is intended to inform a future purchase, as in a website or newsletter, you can justify using more copy to support or elaborate key points if you have the space to do so. Which brings us to the second but related factor to consider: how much space do you have for messaging? If you have limited space, keep the messaging simple and focused on the desired action or outcome, as with pieces intended to motivate an immediate purchase. And again, if you've got more space, you can elaborate on points you think necessary to inform and motivate your intended audience. A third consideration is whether you have the ability to provide more information by linking other channels. If you have limited space in one piece, you can lead the reader to other channels with space for more information. An example is a utility email or bill insert with a link to a web page containing frequently asked questions about efficient lighting. The next thing to ask yourself is how this messaging will integrate with your existing communication strategy. The messaging platform contains a comprehensive set of messaging and copy for each pillar, but it is not the intention that you should always use all of these messaging pillars in your communications. Some messaging provided in the platform might not fit within an individual utility's broader communication strategy. The messaging content was designed to be modular and can be used independently even if individual pillars are not applied at all. A final consideration when applying lighting messages is, what information do my target consumers need to move them towards the purchase of efficient bulbs? Although we encourage the use of reducing energy waste as a primary message for motivating a purchase, consumers still need additional information to convince them this is a good purchase or to help them purchase the right efficient bulb. For example, some consumers are already familiar with and convinced of the benefits of efficient lighting and might need information to help them find an efficient bulb of the brightness and the color they want. Other consumers may have had bad experiences with earlier generations of efficient lighting or have no experience at all buying them. These consumers might need messaging that compares the energy use of incandescents with the energy use of efficient lighting, or information that tells them current efficient bulbs are much higher quality than earlier generations, or information that lets people know there's an efficient bulb for practically every application and brightness and color preference. If you're not sure how familiar or comfortable your target consumers are with efficient lighting, it may be most effective to provide basic information on the benefits of efficient lighting and information about how newer generations of efficient lighting are better performing and are available in a broader range of styles and preferences. The remainder of this presentation will focus on recommendations for effective use of this copy under different scenarios, with examples contrasting more effective and less effective applications. At any point, you can pause this recording to read examples provided and then press play to restart. First, focus on core message objective when there's limited space. When creating the copy for a marketing piece with very limited space, such as this sample bill insert, it's important not to overload it with too much copy. Most consumers won't spend time reading a lot of small print. They may even be dissuaded by too much copy if it leads the consumer to believe this is a complex decision for a relatively inconsequential purchase. They may instead default to habitual purchases. Instead, limit the copy to your core messaging to quickly inform, guide, or influence a purchase. In this first example of a bill insert, there's too much copy about the details of the new legislation and a wordy description of what this means for how we'll be shopping for bulbs. All this detail makes it difficult for the reader to quickly comprehend the important information we want them to have in order to motivate a purchase, if they read it at all. In contrast, the second example does not include a lot of background detail, but rather concisely focuses on a couple main points. That new legislation is making bulbs more efficient, that we now have to think in terms of brightness instead of energy use when selecting a bulb, and that there's a new label on packaging that includes information to help us make the right choice. This second example also provides a graphic of lumen and wattage equivalencies to help consumers quickly see the relationship between them. The next recommendation is about highlighting a call to action. In addition to providing consumers with information on the benefits of energy-efficient lighting, we need to articulate and emphasize a specific call to action. In other words, the specific action we want the consumer to take. Now, it may seem obvious that the purpose of a marketing piece is to get the reader to eventually buy a product or service. But as the examples here show, an explicit call to action can make the difference between a passive piece that simply provides information and a piece that actively tells the consumer what to do with this information. An effective call to action can be achieved in several ways. You can use an action verb such as buy, select, tell. You can place the call to action in a key spot in the content, such as the heading, at the beginning of the copy, or at the end. Or in promotions that are to be read, the call to action can be emphasized through special treatment of the font size, color, style, starburst, and so on. The first example on the left includes information that has the potential to motivate a purchase. In this case, that efficient lighting can use 70 to 80% less energy than incandescents. But there's no clearly articulated call to action. The message remains largely informational and leaves the consumer to infer a follow-up action. In comparison, in the example on the right, the call to action, buy efficient light bulbs, is clearly stated and prominently placed at the beginning of the copy block. We're telling the reader what we want them to do with this information. In this example, this call to action could be just as impacting at the end of the short copy segment. But if you're using a longer copy segment, it's recommended to include your call to action near the beginning of the piece in the event the readers don't get all the way through longer pieces. Another recommendation is to construct your copy from more than one platform pillar. Occasionally, you may need to prepare copy to elaborate on a specific aspect of lighting or for a target group that is more familiar with the technology and its benefits. In this case, maximizing the content of one or two message pillars might be appropriate. But most lighting messages used for consumer marketing purposes should be designed to inform, motivate, and compel action from a general audience. This will very often warrant key points for more than one pillar. Generally speaking, if the entire message space is dedicated to a single message pillar or theme, it may not provide enough comprehensive information to motivate an informed purchase. For example, if we focus an entire newsletter column, several paragraphs, using only copy from the pillar about how efficient bulbs reduce energy waste, we're not providing consumers with the important content like the transition to product labeling with lumens or that there's an efficient bulb for just about every household need. An effective marketing piece will likely use key points from a few message pillars, providing more compelling information, motivation, and a call to action. For specific examples of this recommendation, please refer to the guidelines document. You can use the copy provided in the platform verbatim, or you can adapt it and modify it for a specific utility program or campaign. How you use the messaging and copy is up to you. When using copy verbatim from the matrix, however, remember that the final piece should include enough information to compel the consumer to action. The example on the left uses copy taken verbatim from the platform copy library, but does not include an actionable context or call to action. And it's not customized for a specific program, campaign, or utility. In the example on the right, promotional copy from several pillars has been adapted for the communication platform of a utilities and energy efficiency program called Super Energy Saver. It ends with a specific call to action, find out more, and includes a link to more information on the utility's website. And this final recommendation will demonstrate how graphic elements can substitute for large amounts of copy to quickly communicate information. To help consumers become more familiar with these new lighting options and more comfortable with the new metrics for choosing the bulb they want, we need to communicate all this new information clearly and fairly quickly. Consumers now need to make several discrete decisions when comparing their options for an efficient light bulb purchase, including the bulb's application, style, brightness, color, and as always, price. Using only copy to communicate all of this information can overwhelm or confuse them. When you need to communicate a lot of details that enable consumers to quickly compare between options, consider using charts, tables, images, and other graphic representations. At right is a point of purchase display that uses graphic elements to help shoppers quickly understand their options and how to select the right bulb for their needs. These options include the style and application of the bulb, the watt to lumens equivalency, and the options for light bulb color. This piece also includes an image of the actual Lighting Facts label and Simple Steps program logo, indicating products that are discounted. This piece effectively uses graphics to lay out the steps involved in making a selection, to communicate options with vivid imagery, and to provide information in a format that enables comparison. Well, that concludes this presentation of the guidelines for creating effective marketing materials with the EISA messaging and copy library. Thank you for taking the time. If you have any questions or comments, please contact myself, Rob Hall, or Dave Moody at the contact information on this slide. Thank you.